So this morning we're going to share on our very recent missional partnership trip that we just took. We actually got off the airplane Monday and got home around 11:30 midnight on Monday. So get dinner while it's hot, they say, and so this morning we're going to do just that. We just getting back right away. We got a bunch of fresh stories that we can share in terms of what was going on here. And as we're sharing here, we're just going to leave this slideshow running. It's about a 5-minute reel that's just going to keep going on. And it'll give you a little bit of a sense of some of the people that we're talking about, some of the places that we were. You're going to see some of the churches that we've supported and actually helped to build, and a lot of the neat projects and so forth. So that will just kind of leave running there. But anyways, this morning we just really want to encourage everyone with a brief report of just a few highlights from this missional partnership trip to Nicaragua. And we're going to do our very best to keep our time reasonably brief. What was that, the picture of Bob with the alien? Oh, the butterfly for Matthias. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, well then we'll see the alien picture come up later. It's funny. Anyways, funny story, but we'll leave that. So, there's so much that we could share about our time away, but we're just going to kind of leave it to a few comments this morning, and I'm sure you'll hear little clips and snippets as we go on throughout the year as some of these highlights come back. So as we have been sharing in weeks leading up to this trip, we had two basic goals for this trip. And the first basic goal of this trip was relationship. We wanted to establish and reestablish relationship within the partnership between Canadian vineyard churches, U.S. vineyard churches, and these Nicaraguan vineyard churches. As we had mentioned, because of some political unrest in 2018 and then COVID in 2020, air travel wasn't happening and a lot of communications were made difficult. So these relational partnerships were a little bit strained here. So we came to reestablish those relationships. Next, we came to help with the national conference for the Nicaraguan pastors and leaders. They haven't been able to meet together for about 5 or 6 years. And so we were able to come and we were able to fund them coming together in one spot so that not only could we meet with them, but they could meet with one another. And it was just a huge blessing on so many fronts and from so many angles that the relationships with one another were encouraged and were strengthened. And we saw that in an amazing way. So within this whole relational picture, we came there to provide a lot of encouragement, to do a little bit of equipping while we were there, and also to do a ton of ministry. We prayed for a lot of people. We hugged a lot of people. It was awesome. We did a lot of things. And as you'll probably see in there, we also did that building project that we were talking about as well. We helped out a little bit with the construction and did our best to make sure that we left as much as we could for the Nicaraguans that we could actually hire. One of the best things we could do is actually give them jobs, not take their jobs from them. So we approached the construction stuff like that. Okay, goal number 2 for being down there was doing a little bit of reconnaissance and research, asking questions like, what might God show us while we're there? What might he be speaking to us? How might he be leading us? And a follow-up question is, what might future endeavors look like? Like, who are some of the people God could be leading us to encourage, to pour into, to invest into? Which churches is God calling us to pour into and to invest into? What churches is he calling us to receive from? Because during that time, many of us received many things from them as well. This just isn't a one-way relationship. This is a two-way street here. Asking things like also some logistical matters. If we do bring down future teams, how are we going to do this? Is it safe? Where do we stay? How do we do it and all that stuff? So all that to say, with those two main goals, I believe we achieved that with great success. And I believe that our stories will reflect that in some various ways. So for the rest of our sharing time here, we're just going to, in order to kind of keep it brief and fun, we're just going to have 2 questions that each of the team members are going to ask, or answer, pardon me. And the first question is something that we learned or observed from our Nicaraguan friends. And question number 2 is just a moment of great impact that we had down there. And there were many. So since I already have the mic, I'm just going to kick it off. We have a little bit of an order, and then Audrey is going to share next. To answer the question, something that we observed or learned from our Nicaraguan friends. There was this phrase that Pastor Marta, who, that's actually her church there, and you'll see a picture of her coming around. Pastor Marta, she's the national coordinator for all of the vineyard churches in Nicaragua. And as we were going around to some of these different places, as we'd go into different homes in some of these really, really like desperately poor neighborhoods, ministering and praying with different folks, Marta would say, as she would introduce us, "We are a big family. We are a part of a big family." And I just want those words to sink in for just a few seconds. We are a part of a big family. And when Pastor Marta would say those things, like when we went to that house there, the people's faces would light up. And they would say, "Yes, we are." And their faces were filled with delight, with hope, and such gratitude that we would be there with them, that we would come into their space, that we would spend time with them, that we would make the effort. But there was this profound acknowledgement that we were family. And it was just an amazing recognition that we saw as we went to different people's houses and as we interacted with the different churches. We are a big family. And this theme kind of seemed to run through a lot of the things that we did. And even one of our vineyard pastors from the United States, he's a Mexican fellow, who's one of the speakers at the conference, he had a shirt that just said that as well, which was kind of interesting, that he had a shirt that said something that was said a day earlier, this "We are family," and it said it in Spanish. And we could see that sense of family in a very tangible way. When we were worshiping that first Sunday in Hino Tepe, a comment was made that this is one of the more vineyard churches out there. It's just like, okay, what does that mean? And then we go and we worship with them. It's just like, oh, this feels like home. We are family. And we got to see that, we worship very similarly. We love one another the same. We pray for one another with a faith that the Spirit will move, and just seeing the way that they love their community and their neighborhood. We are a big family, and these folks are family. Okay. And last story in terms of a moment of great impact for me was several years ago. On one of our previous trips, so actually on 2 of our previous trips, we met this young man. His name is Philippe. And Felipe, don't forget the E. Felipe. And Felipe, when we first met him, was a troubled teenager. He wasn't doing well. Life wasn't going well. He was making some pretty destructive decisions. But we just had opportunity over those 2 different trips, over a couple different years, just to speak gently into his life and to pray for him. And that was it. And we saw him again on this next trip. Karis actually recognized him first. I was just like, "Is that him?" "No, I don't think so. He's like a grown man now." And she's like, "No, that's him." Goes up, talks to him. And he comes up to us and he says, "I think about you guys very, very often. And I was so hoping that you would come, because I wanted to tell you what you did all those years ago changed my life. Those simple words and those prayers changed my life." And he says, "I want you to see now, I've got a wife, I've got 2 kids, my life is going in a good direction, I've got a job, I'm serving this church actively, I'm involved here. What you guys did changed my life." He's like, "We get a picture with you guys, with my family." And So we'll have one of those pictures rotate on there with this family. But it's just this profound moment where I think of 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 58, where the Apostle Paul writes, "We do not labor in vain." Very often we don't know the effects of what we do. Like, I poured out my life. Did it matter? I planted seeds. Is there going to be fruit? And lots of times we don't know and we don't see the fruit. But here was just one little incident, a little gift from the Father, where we got to see, yes, what you did actually bore some fruit here. And so we were able to impact a fellow and see some significant change come to his life. So, all right, I'm going to pass the mic off now to Audrey, or as they would call her, Odrid.
Odrid.
They couldn't say Audrey, so Audrey got renamed to Odrid. And we're going to look at the two questions from Audrey's perspective.
Okay. Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, I'm still catching up on sleep, though there was no time change. It was just a busy 12 days, and it was wonderful. It was a big decision for me to go to Nicaragua. I've been on mission trips before with our youth and with our previous ministry. There's Philippe, you just saw him. But my body isn't as strong as it once was, and I was a bit hesitant, but I sensed this was God's call and decided this is where he needed me to go. And he was very faithful to give me the physical strength I needed and allowed me to discover so many new things about him during this trip. One of the most important discoveries I made was that in this poor and lowly country of Nicaragua, there are some remarkable people of faith who are deeply committed to Jesus. In our Western culture, we like to just use and know the names of noted Christians. Oh, I met so-and-so, or I went to his conference, or whatever. But you know, there are many, many hidden giants of the faith in these countries, and who will never be recognized here on earth by name, but will be applauded by God the Father one day in heaven. And I think we met quite a few people like that. And that just touched my soul. Two of those people for me were Pastor Marta and her husband Edler of the La Viña Niño Tepe. These two newlyweds have a vibrant faith and a solid commitment to serving Jesus. They are teachers, mentors, servants, and people whose humble lives inspired me as I witnessed their joyful and selfless service to their people. I am so blessed and humbled to have met them and been touched by their lives. They're an amazing couple. And they got married in December, and they're having a baby next March. It's really exciting for them. Okay. Uh-oh, there it is. One of my favorite experiences with them was to do the home visits at the beginning of the week, to bring food and pray with the people from La Viña. And I was able to meet some amazing women, abuelas in Nicaragua, grandmothers who sacrificially care for their children and grandchildren each day with joy. Specifically, 3 women, Rosita, Celia, and Fanny, were all women who opened their hearts to us all, and God blessed me through them. They were so committed to intercede for their families and live for Jesus in their communities and in the church. And though there was a language barrier between us, we were able to pray together and share hugs with one another many times during my time in Nicaragua. There's a picture with me and 2 of them. That was Celia and Judith, yeah. They've left an imprint of Jesus in my heart. That's how important it was for me to just connect with them and realize we're all grandmas, whether we're abuelas or grandma. We had the same yearning for our children and grandchildren to follow Jesus. And I am so glad I went and met them specifically. They came, we would visit them on Monday, was it? And then during during the conference, they all came to the conference. They got a bus and they came to this other town and they were all there. And it was really exciting to see them really wanting to be there and making sacrifices to get there. So it was just a phenomenal time for me. And I'm really glad I went.
Thank you so much, Abuelo Odrid. Oh, how could I forget? I'm an abuela, apparently. Abuelo. Oh, the other way around. Okay. Shows you my command of Spanish that I don't have. Amazing. I'm actually really, really proud of Audrey, for going. I mean, despite the mobility challenges that Audrey has, and the questions at first, and could we really do a trip like this? Your willingness to risk it and say yes and go, and you did so well. And in large measure, thanks to your prayers of many people, not just Audrey's health and her strength, but for the whole team. I think just the fact that none of us got sick in a major way, we were safe the whole time, felt healthy, remarkable. Not just that, but the way God worked through us. So just let me say this. My overall impressions is that Nicaragua is a fantastic country. It's beautiful, utterly beautiful. It is a great, great place. But the people are the highlight for me. The people that we encountered are open-hearted. They are loving. They are affectionate. They are so expressive. The worship services in the churches we were in were incredible. I mean, these people know how to, emote and express their love and their feelings. I don't think I've been hugged that many times in a single week as I have this on the trip. It was absolutely honestly, I fell in love with the Nicaraguan people. They are beautiful people. The vineyard churches are alive and stable. Pastors are doing relatively well despite the COVID impact and all of the consequences of that. And combine that with the ongoing challenges that all churches in Nicaragua face because of the political and challenging situation that they are in. It's not easy to run a church there for sure in many, many ways. So thank you for the role you played in supporting us in prayer. And speaking of prayer, my absolute highlight was we did so much prayer ministry. We did lots and lots of prayer ministry. We got to pray for so many people. It's a blur now, really, in so many ways. But this is what I love to do. And anybody that knows me at all knows how much my passion and my heart is to just pray for people, just to pray and just to see what God wants to do. And you say, well, how'd you do that with the language barrier? Well, there's a miracle God created called Google Translate. It's a gift from God. And let me tell you, did that thing ever help? Because I would write, on my side, can I pray for you? And hand it to them. Oh, yeah. So then they would write back, yes, you can. What can I pray for you? And then they would say something. And in many, many cases, I would bring in a teenager, a young person who was in the area because most young people know English. And so, I would say, can you speak English? And of course they'd say, oh, no, I can't do it. I don't know. Well, they ended up being way better than they gave themselves credit for. So then we would, bring in somebody and they would be a translator and they really helped in that process. So there was really no issues with language barriers, even if your Spanish is as non-existent as mine is. Karis and I were able to do a talk at the national conference to the youth. It ended up being the children and youth, which was a big age span of people. But we did a talk on identity, which was just amazing. And it was amazing in the sense that the participants, the children and teens, listened so attentively. They were really focused. And we probably had the best translator you could hope for in Nicaragua. She was remarkable. So that combination, they were really engaged, and we were able to kind of speak truth about who they are in Christ. But I think the best part was when I asked this question, how many of you want to receive Christ as your Savior? And there were several hands that went up in that time. They were among the younger ones, the children. And so again, we are believing God has done a work in that way in bringing people into faith. But then we got to pray for all of these people. Our team was there. We had lots of team members at that event. And to pray words of blessing into these future leaders and words of destiny and how they're going to grow to become just dedicated followers of Christ. That was one of the joys for us, I think, just being able to share. We both shared our testimonies, and we're pretty open about our struggle with coming to our own identity. So what a great time. So there was a lot of wildlife there, and I'm not just talking about Nathan and Karis, you know what I mean? They're wild. But the wildlife in that country, as you can imagine, and many of you have been to tropical countries and jungles, just fantastic. It's beautiful. That jungle walk was amazing. But there was one particular night when we heard this sound outside our hotel door as we were getting ready to go to bed. And I hope you can hear it. I'm going to turn it right up and put the mic here. So listen, see if you can tell me what this is. Is it not playing? Not coming out? Okay. So what's happening right now is it's my Bluetooth. It's my hearing aids that are Bluetooth connected. I'm about to disable that. I'm disabling it now. Now you should be. These hearing aids are fantastic. You can hear stuff. But it didn't help in my presentation at all. So let's try that again, see what happens. Okay. Okay, so I'll try it again. Here we go. Tell me what this is. Okay, if you're saying that is Nathan snoring, you are almost right, but it's not. Any guesses? Out really loud, because hearing aids. Frog. Who said that just now? So smart. It was frogs. We couldn't believe it. Sounded like a dying duck or something, you know. Frogs. The next morning we went to the people at the hotel. We said, what was that sound? And they go, oh, the frogs. Yeah, they do that all the time. I never saw one, but can you imagine the kind of frog that would make that sound? It'd be like the size of a boulder, right? I was afraid to go outside to get a picture of it, thinking I would be, eaten alive and dragged into the jungle because of what this thing looked like. But anyway, that's just a little taste of some of the unique sounds that Nicaragua had. Whew. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up just by telling one prayer ministry story. This is absolutely the highlight of the whole week for me. Well, there were so many great answers to prayer, but we went into this home on a home visit on the first Saturday, and the whole team, and there was an obvious tension between the oldest teenage daughter and her mom. There was this, you just see her face, just sullen and angry and quiet and withdrawn. And somebody on our team was really prophetic, had a super sense of what God was saying and doing. And so, he spoke it to her. He said, God really wants to bring reconciliation between the two of you. So they were willing to work through a process of just coming to terms, in her case, the teenage girl's case, with her anger. The man led her through a process of letting it go, like rejecting her anger, renouncing it. And in this case, there was some kind of demonic stronghold there. So he had her declare, I renounce you in Jesus' name, anger, spirit of anger, you are gone, kind of thing. And she went through that, willingly participated, reluctantly at first, but came more cooperative as time went on. Anyway, so she did that. The mom then was led to ask forgiveness from the daughter for the things that she had done. And I don't even know what the issue was. So there's the two of them doing that. Eventually, two isolated people slowly coming together. They embraced, they hugged. There was tears in the entire room from the whole family and so many of us on the team. It was an absolutely dramatic and beautiful moment. The next day, this is what's the coolest thing. We were in church, and this really, really happy, bubbly, smiley teenage girl walks in. And I said to Audrey, who's that girl? And Audrey goes, that's the girl we prayed for last night. Okay, I have never seen such a dramatic transformation in an individual. The freedom, the joy, the openness, the the work that God did to just bring this teenage girl out of whatever place she was in, it just reminds me of Isaiah 42, which is what a verse God gave me from somebody before we left. I, the Lord, have called you in righteousness. I will take hold of your hand. I will keep you and will make you to be a covenant for the people, a light to the Gentiles. Listen to this. To open eyes that are blind, to free captives from prison, and to release from the dungeon those who sit in darkness. And man, when you can see that happen, I mean, we all don't see answers to prayer like that. We'd love to. But when you do see it, it is such a faith builder and so encouraging. So that's my highlight. The final thing I'm going to say is the sister of this teenage girl who was set free wrote this and said it, declared it publicly before, on our last service on the Sunday before we came home. And this is what she wrote in her very simple English, said this publicly. Dear team, we are very grateful for everything. It is not easy to leave your home and family, but you left your home and family to come to Nicaragua to support us. You are very important to us. You are our family. We are one big family, Nathan reported. Thank you for this beautiful and great work. We love you, team. We will miss you. Thank you so much for everything. For those that are asking, is it worth going somewhere? Is there real value in that? Is it really that good to spend all that money and travel and it's just a short time? You know what the answer is? Yes. Yes. It's worth it. It's worth going. Even if it's for a week or 2 or 6 months, it is worth it for what it means to the people when you come and you show up. They are so thankful. They are so impacted. Felipe, you know, you remember these guys from years ago. So never downplay the importance of this, not to mention the work God does in our own hearts when we say yes to a trip like this and we give ourselves. We believe there's a future door open for ministry and partnership in Nicaragua. I want to ask many of you to be open to the possibility of going down the road once we hear clearly from the Lord what that should look like. But when it comes, be open, okay? Be open.
Yeah, I think everybody should go. But I'm in love with Nicaragua, and have been for some time, so it's part of the problem. One crazy thing, my name was Caroline for quite a long time. I'm not sure how that came about. And Bob's name was very hard to wrap their heads around. Bob, like, why would you call yourself that? Bub? Bub? And he would be like, no, like Robert. And they'd be like, oh, Roberto. Roberto. Sorry, I'm not rolling enough. Anyways. Also, I am a bit of a beacon in that place because of my hair. So all the kids loved me, regardless of the fact that I loved them. But my hair is just such a fascinating thing because it's blonde and they don't have that. So anyway. So the Vineyard Partnership between Nicaragua, U.S., Canada, was always meant to be just that, a partnership. So there are pastors and leaders in Nicaragua who love Jesus and who want to share the gospel and to care for their neighbors just like we do. And they do it with that vineyard flair. So they're all vineyard DNA, as our national director would say. It's a vineyard DNA. We love doing this together. We love doing it this way. There's lots of different ways to share Jesus, but this is kind of our heart in it all. So the primary goal for this partnership, which has been over 20 years of a partnership. This is not a few years. This is not a new thing. 20 years of partnering together has been all about relationship. That has been their focus. That has been our focus going down. It's all about relationship. There are many things that have been done together, like building walls for a church or providing leadership training. They took all their young leaders and trained them up and did all these crazy, like year after year, went down and poured into their leaders for them and helped them to pour into their leaders, provided funds for them to connect, like we did with bringing them all together for this national conference that hadn't happened in years because of COVID and things. But all of this has been in the context of relationship. The leader of the partnership, who is Steve Fish, and he's been up there rolling around. He's a 74-year-old man, and he has been there and led this partnership for over 20 years. Audrey used the word meek. He's a meek man. And that, I think, is the word for that man. He is the guy who drives everybody, he's the only one who will drive in Nicaragua. He has just poured himself into this partnership, into these people. Steve has been visiting Nicaragua almost twice a year for over 20 years. He and his wife lived there for months when they were younger. And their love and care for the people has transcended that language and that geographical issue of he lives in Oregon, right? I think so. Anyways, this man has just consistently shown up. He was honored by the pastors and leaders. This was his last trip as leader of the partnership. He was handing that over. Not saying that he wouldn't be back, but that as organizer of all the things, he was giving that up. But he was honored by the pastors and leaders the last Saturday we were there during the conference. And they gave him plaques, and they gave him all these things, and then they shared their hearts. And they just went on and on, blubbering away in Spanish, trying to get translation going and all the things. But they were just so grateful. But what spoke to me the most about this man, and honestly, I want to be like him when I grow up. What spoke the most to me was his response to these people. He literally just sat there, or stood there. He graciously stood there. He listened, and he said thank you, and he just wept. And that was all. He couldn't even say anything other than thank you. That was it. And at one point, there's another guy, Glenn Schroeder, who is up there too, rolling around, who has partnered with him quite a bit and gone down with him. He had said at a meeting, he was like, if there was ever an apostle, and I don't throw that word out very often, but if there was ever an apostle, this is a man who has shown up consistently, who knows Jesus, who builds this community up, and who just blesses them and comes and goes as he can. That was the definition of an apostle, and he does it with such meekness and kindness, and I just thought, oh my goodness. He loved them, they knew it, because he had been there for over 20 years, just showing up consistently. So the partnership is about relationship. It's not about mission, as in the way we normally think of mission. We think of, going and helping these poor people that, are so destitute, and we just give them a bunch of money and we build things and we buy things for them and then we leave. This is a very different idea of what ministering in a different country can look like. It is about showing up, about not taking over. The Nicaraguans, they organized their own conference. They organized where it was going to be. We stayed with the frogs. And all those sorts of things was their doing. They did it all. They organized all the buses to get everybody there and all that sort of stuff. So it's not about taking over or showing them how to do it right. It's about being there, honoring them and their work, and walking with them as they need, within the capacity that we have. So it's about consistency, giving of oneself in service, and building one another up in love. And that's really the only thing that, the vision of the partnership, along with all the stuff that comes with that, but the vision of the partnership is about that. So I have learned so much from this trip. But if I'm honest, the thing that I take back is the value of relationship. Because it just shone so brightly for me. Gathering together, praying for one another, like this stuff is huge. Loving each other with whatever capacity we have, because we don't all have the capacity to do all these things, but we can love one another, even with our smiles or our words. And it's much more valued than anything we do, and that's the same right here. It's always the same. I learned that in a different way from the Nicaraguans, and I bring that home because I think that's the way of the kingdom. I really, really do. So that was what I had to share.
Thank you. All right, we're going to wrap up our time now by gathering around the table. But as we do that, I just want to kind of plant the seed too, is that this is just a small snapshot of some of what we were involved in. There'll be more to come because kind of the question lingers as well, what do we do? How can the rest of us engage? And there are multiple avenues that don't necessarily even involve hopping on an airplane for many, many hours and so forth, in ways that we can encourage brothers and sisters in a land far off. We want to do mission at home, mission abroad, and those two things are going to be hand in hand.